3 years ago, my boyfriend and I escaped into the mountains, desperate to get away from work, noise, and people. We just wanted silence and a place the world couldn't find us. The cabin was buried deep in the forest. Once the pavement ended, a narrow dirt road dragged us farther and farther from civilization. The listing photos hadn't done it justice. Wide windows facing endless trees, a crackling fireplace, and walls that smelled like fresh pine. It felt like a perfect hiding place, maybe a little too perfect. Our first night was peaceful. We ate, laughed, curled up near the fire, and let exhaustion take over. I fell asleep feeling safe, almost weightless. That didn't last. Around 2 a.m., I jolted awake. At first it sounded like a deer, soft crunching leaves outside. But then the steps grew slower, heavier, purposeful. They circled the cabin. I held my breath and nudged my boyfriend. He heard it too. Whoever it was moved with intention. Step, pause. Step, pause. They lingered near the windows long enough for silence to feel like a threat. We didn't dare look. We just lay there waiting for something, anything, to happen. Then the footsteps stopped completely. Silence can scream. That night it did. Morning brought sunlight and excuses, probably an animal, probably nothing. We lied to ourselves because the truth felt too sharp. Saturday was perfect. Hiking, jokes, sweaty peace. By bedtime, we were too tired to be afraid. We drifted off quickly, but at 2 a.m., like a ritual, I woke up again. The footsteps were back. This time, they weren't shy. Whoever it was wanted us to hear. They walked slower, closer, brushing the walls, stopping at the door. And then the soft metallic click of the doorknob being tested. Just once. Just enough. Fight or flight doesn't always kick in. Sometimes you freeze and pray. I grabbed my phone and flicked the flashlight toward a window. Instant silence, like whatever was out there had been watching for that exact reaction. We didn't sleep. When daylight came, we went outside. Boot prints. Deep ones, circling the entire cabin again and again. Not wandering, pacing, watching, counting time. We packed fast and drove away without speaking. No complaints, no report to the owner, just escape. But the cabin wasn't what haunted me on the drive home. It was the precision, the timing. The way those footsteps stopped the second we acknowledged them. 2 nights in a row, same hour, same pattern. Someone out there knew exactly when we slept. And exactly when we woke. We got away. But I can't stop thinking. What if they followed the wrong pair home? Every night since then, right around 2 a.m., I lie awake, listening. About 5 years ago, after a breakup that tore me apart more than I'd ever admit, I decided I needed silence. Not comfort, not company, just silence. So I rented a cheap, isolated cabin deep in the woods for a week. My plan was simple: disappear from the world long enough to figure out how to put myself back together. I found the place online. Sketchy website, blurry photos, but the price was unbeatable and it was available immediately. The listing bragged about rustic simplicity and complete disconnection. No Wi-Fi, barely any cell signal, and neighbors miles away. Perfect. I didn't want anyone reaching me or knowing where I was. The drive took me farther from civilization than I expected. The road narrowed from asphalt to gravel, then to something that barely counted as a road at all. Eventually, the trees parted just enough to reveal the cabin. Small, plain, wooden, hidden. like it didn't want to be found. The owner had left the key under the doormat, incredibly cliché. But it was exactly where he said. Inside, the place looked dated but functional. A kitchenette, a sagging couch, a tiny bathroom, and a bedroom with a bed that creaked if I breathed too hard. The air smelled like dust and damp wood. But one thing stood out immediately. In the narrow hallway between the bathroom and bedroom, there was a door. Heavy, older than the rest of the cabin, and locked. No label, no explanation. I assumed it was storage, a place the owner kept cleaning supplies or junk. I shrugged it off, dumped my bag on the bed, and tried to convince myself I was excited to be alone. The first night went fine. A little too quiet maybe, but that's what I'd wanted, right? I fell asleep to the sound of wind through the trees. The second night changed everything. Around 3 a.m., something woke me. A creak. Inside. Not outside in the woods, inside the cabin. My eyes adjusted to the dark as I held my breath and listened. Another creak, closer old wooden floorboards shifting beneath. Wait. Footsteps. Slow, cautious, dragging footsteps. My heart started pounding when I realized exactly where the sound came from. The locked door. I sat frozen in bed, staring at the shadowy hallway while the sound continued. A shuffle, a shift, the faintest pressure against the door from the other side. Then silence. I waited, too scared to move, until dawn finally bled through the curtains. I tried to rationalize it over breakfast. Old buildings settle, rodents, wind. Excuses are easy to make in daylight. But the following night at the same time, 3 a.m., the footsteps returned. This time there was no mistaking it. Someone was pacing in that hidden room. Boards groaned under careful, deliberate steps. Back and forth. Stop. Then back again. A steady rhythm. A presence. I slid out of bed and edged toward the hallway. The moment my feet hit the floor, the pacing stopped. Dead silence. Whoever was in there had paused, listening for me. I stood there in the darkness, barely breathing, feeling watched through a door that should have opened to nothing. My pulse hammered in my ears. After what felt like an hour, though it was probably minutes, I backed away and retreated to the couch, leaving every light in the cabin on. Daylight didn't help my nerves anymore. I texted the owner, trying to sound casual. "Hey, what's behind the locked door?" His reply came too quickly. "Just storage." Nothing you need to bother with. That message scared me more than the noises. Quick answers mean someone is already staring at their phone, waiting, expecting the question. I decided I wasn't sleeping that night. I sat in the hallway floor with my phone recording audio, every muscle locked tight. The minutes dragged on until 2:45 a.m., when the first creak shivered through the floorboards. Slow, heavy, a presence waking up. Footsteps circled within that room. They stopped near the door, inches from where I sat. I leaned in, pressing my ear to the wood. Breathing, not mine, not my imagination, breathing, soft, wet. Close. On the other side of the door, someone was standing there, listening back. My whole body turned to ice. I backed away without daring to gasp, hurried into the bedroom and locked the flimsy door, as if that could protect me. I stayed fully dressed under the covers, watching the handle, waiting for it to turn. It never did. But I didn't sleep either. At first light, I shoved everything into my car and drove. No shower, no breakfast, no second glance. I never contacted the owner again, not a goodbye, not a complaint, nothing. I didn't want him to have any more of my information than he already did. Weeks later, curiosity betrayed me. I tried to look the cabin up again. Same listing site, same search terms, gone. Not just unavailable, erased. No photos, no address, no rental history, nothing on the owner either. Like the place had never been listed at all. Like it had never been meant to be found. But the recording on my phone still exists. Creaking, footsteps. A slow inhale right next to the microphone. Proof that something, someone, was inside that cabin with me the whole time. And sometimes late at night when my apartment feels too quiet, I play the audio again, just to remind myself. Because the worst part isn't not knowing what or who was behind that door. The worst part is knowing it stayed quiet only because I listened. I was 19 when this happened. Young enough to think nothing truly bad could happen to me, but old enough to know better. My friends and I had just finished our first year of college, and we wanted to celebrate somewhere far from dorm rooms, deadlines, and cafeteria food. Someone suggested a cabin in the mountains, fresh air, a private lake, and no parents. It sounded perfect. The cabin itself was almost unreal when we arrived. 2 stories, huge windows that looked out toward the lake, and a porch that wrapped around the entire place like something out of a travel magazine. The water shimmered behind it, reflecting tall pines that crowded the property. It felt untouched, quiet in a way that almost felt staged. We spent the first 2 days being idiots, hiking barefoot, cannonballing into the lake, burning marshmallows, telling ghost stories we barely remembered. We were loud, ecstatic, alive. Nothing strange, nothing threatening. That changed on the 3rd night. It started small, a discovery. Sarah found a little wooden figurine sitting neatly on the porch railing. A carved raccoon, surprisingly detailed, its tail curled like it was ready to leap. She thought it was adorable. We all laughed about it. Why wouldn't we? But then I spotted another one outside the kitchen window. A face with deep-set eyes carved from a broken tree branch. Jake found one by the fire pit. And there was one more near the lake. Sam nearly stepped on it. None of us remembered seeing them before, and we'd been everywhere. It was weird, sure, but we chalked it up to cabin decor we just missed. Denial is easy when you're having fun. That night we stayed up playing cards, talking trash, drinking too much. Sometime after 1 a.m., mid-laughter, we heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't loud, but it was crisp, purposeful. Like someone carving wood with a knife, one careful cut at a time. We froze. Jake grabbed a flashlight and scanned the tree line. Nothing. The second the beam hit the pines, the tapping stopped. Silence swallowed the porch. We laughed again, nervously this time, and went to bed. Morning came with more carvings. A tiny wooden deer on the steps. A faceless figure outside the sliding glass door. They were closer now, close enough to feel intentional. Sarah picked up the faceless one. It felt wrong, too smooth where its eyes and mouth should have been, like someone had erased the features on purpose. She shuddered and dropped it. We told ourselves the owner must be adding decorations at night, which was a pathetic excuse. What owner sneaks around property at dawn placing creepy art like some deranged Easter bunny? But none of us said that part out loud. That night, 1 a.m., just like before, the tapping returned. Only this time it wasn't in the woods, it was on our porch, each tap sharper, more deliberate, like the knife was cutting closer to us every second. Jake motioned for me to follow. We crept toward the door. I looked through the peephole, my heart practically battering itself against my ribs. Empty porch, no one there. But the knife kept carving. Closer, louder. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy. Someone walking right in front of the door. We didn't breathe, didn't speak, didn't dare move. The footsteps stopped. Whoever or whatever stood just inches away, separated only by a flimsy wooden door we suddenly realized could easily be kicked open. Jake whispered that we should call for help. My hand shook trying to unlock my phone before we could dial anything. The steps moved again, down the porch, into the trees, fading into silence. None of us slept. Morning revealed the worst sight yet. 12 carvings, each one a different human-like figure lined in a perfect row from porch to tree line. A path, a summons, and every figure faced the cabin. Eyes, some carved deep, some shallow, seemed to stare directly into the windows. That was it. We were done. We packed so fast we left half our stuff behind, slammed the car doors, peeled out like the devil himself was sprinting behind us. We didn't talk for nearly an hour, no music, no jokes, just shock. Then Sarah pulled up the cabin listing again. Reviews we hadn't bothered to read carefully before. Most were glowing, nature, tranquility. A soul-refreshing retreat. But then she found an older comment, hidden deep, downvoted, buried. The woodcarver never shows his face, but he always leaves a gift. I nearly threw her phone out the window. We drove the rest of the way in tense silence. That night in the dorms, none of us slept much. Every creak sounded like tapping. Every shadow seemed to watch. We never went back, and none of us have rented a cabin since. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had stayed one more night. If we had opened the door while the carving continued. If we had followed those wooden figures into the trees. But I don't let that thought linger long, because I know he wasn't done carving. Not yet. 2 winters ago, my husband and I thought escaping the city would be the perfect anniversary gift to ourselves. We'd spent months buried in work, rarely seeing each other awake, and we desperately needed a quiet place where the world couldn't reach us. A cabin in the mountains buried in snow and pine trees. What could possibly ruin that kind of romance? The cabin looked unreal when we arrived. A steep winding road led us to a clearing where the place stood like a postcard brought to life. Icicles hung from the roof, the forest surrounded us in every direction, and a stone fireplace in the living room promised warmth all weekend. It felt like the world had shrunk down to just the 2 of us. The windows were the most striking feature, floor-to-ceiling glass that offered an endless view of the forest. During daylight, it was magical. At night, though, those same windows turned into dark mirrors. Standing inside, you couldn't see a single thing beyond your own reflection. But if anyone was out there, they'd watch every move we made. We laughed about it at first. We were here to reconnect, not spook ourselves. So we cooked dinner, lit the fireplace, wrapped ourselves in blankets, and put on a movie like the happy couple we were trying to be. Around 10 p.m., my husband walked toward the kitchen, passing the huge windows in the living room. He suddenly stopped mid-step. "Did you see that?" he whispered. I sat up. "See what?" "Someone outside, I swear, just Just a second ago. I joined him at the window, pressing my forehead to the glass. All I saw was our reflection flickering in the glow of the fire. My voice wavered, but I tried sounding confident. Probably just a deer. He pretended to accept that, but I noticed him staring into the dark every few minutes afterward. We eventually went to bed, leaving the dying fire to crackle low in the quiet house. Sometime after 1 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom. The hallway was dark except for the faint light of the fire still glowing in the living room. Without thinking, I glanced toward the windows, and I saw a face. Not a blur, not a trick of the glass. A face, pale, expressionless, pressed almost too close to the window, its features stretched slightly by the reflection. Its eyes were wide, unblinking, fixed on the interior of the cabin. Fixed on me. I stumbled backward, but I couldn't tear my gaze away. I was terrified that if I blinked, I'd lose track of it, and that thought alone scared me even more. I sprinted to the bedroom and shook my husband awake, whispering frantically, "Someone is outside." At the window. Watching. He jumped out of bed, grabbed his phone for light, and we crept back together, but by then, the face was gone. He pressed his phone against the glass, scanning the forest. Nothing, no shadows shifting, no branches snapping. Just darkness staring back. "You were half asleep," he said softly, "dreaming with your eyes open." But he sounded like he was trying to convince himself, not me. At sunrise, we checked outside. Snow had fallen overnight, but a set of footprints remained crisp, unmistakable. They led from the tree line straight to the window where I had seen the face. Then back again. Someone had stood there, watching me, watching us. My husband wanted to call the police. I talked him down. Embarrassment, denial, hope that maybe we weren't the weekend's entertainment for a stranger. We locked every door, closed every curtain, claimed we were still having a great time. Night fell again, as it always does. Around 2 a.m. I woke up to sound. Not a loud noise, not banging. A soft, deliberate rhythm. Tap, 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 like fingertips gently knocking on glass. The tapping moved, window to window. We sat up, listening to it travel around the cabin, slow, patient footsteps crunching in the snow outside. Every few seconds, another tap, like someone circling a fish tank, observing the movement inside. My husband got out of bed, shoulders tense, and crept toward the living room. As soon as he reached the window, silence. He yanked the curtain back and shined his flashlight outside. Nothing. No running footsteps, no branches swaying violently. Whatever was out there moved like it had all the time in the world. We slept with the lights on. Or rather, we stayed awake while pretending the lamps could protect us. The next morning, we searched the perimeter again. This time, footprints circled the entire cabin. Every window had a pair standing beneath it, some close enough that you could see where the snow had melted slightly from warmth, human warmth. We didn't pack neatly. We shoved whatever we could into the car and left steaming coffee cups on the counter. Romance weekend canceled. For days afterward, I could still feel those eyes on me when I closed my own. Curiosity mixed with hunger. A gaze that wasn't frightened away by flashlights or locks. Something patient. Something that didn't mind waiting for the dark. A couple weeks later, I checked the listing again. Still up, still renting. But new reviews had been added. 3 different guests mentioned a night watcher. One woke up to handprints smeared across the glass, large, with fingers much longer than normal. I don't know who or what was outside those windows, but I know this. Some things don't knock to be let inside. They tap, just to remind you they're already there, watching, waiting, looking for a moment of darkness, just enough for you to look back. This happened last fall, one of those last warm weeks before the cold really settles in, when two of my closest friends and I decided to finally take our long-promised guys' trip. The plan was simple: good beer, fresh fish, and zero responsibilities. A perfect reset before life swallowed us again. The cabin we rented online was cheap, suspiciously cheap if I'm being honest, but we weren't exactly swimming in money and the pictures looked acceptable enough. Rustic. Outdoorsy. We convinced ourselves that was part of the charm. Getting there was a journey in itself. The GPS led us down a cracked asphalt road that turned into gravel, then into dirt, then into something that barely qualified as a path. Branches scraped both sides of the car like the woods were trying to keep us out. When we finally saw the cabin appear through the trees, we all fell silent. It looked tired. The wood was graying and soft in places. The porch sagged like something heavy had been sitting on it for a long time. The windows were dusty and dark, and when we opened the door, we were met with a sour, earthy smell like old leaves and wet carpet. But guys' weekend enthusiasm is strong, stubborn stuff. We opened the windows, aired the place out, dumped our gear inside, and cracked open the first round of beers. The cabin's layout was simple. One big common room with old mismatched furniture, a kitchen that had probably seen better decades, and two cramped bedrooms in the back. It wasn't much, but it would do. The first day was easy. Fishing at the creek, joking around, talking trash like we were still teenagers. By nightfall, we were sun-tired, beer-drunk, and exactly where we wanted to be. Around midnight, we were mid-poker game when Chris headed outside to grab more beer from the cooler. He was gone maybe half a minute when he came back in, face drained of every bit of color. "There's someone out there," he whispered. We waited for the punchline. It never came. "What do you mean?" I asked. He lifted a shaky hand toward the tree line. Someone was just standing there, watching. Mike grabbed the flashlight and the three of us stepped onto the porch. The woods were a black wall of silence. We swept the light around, nothing but trees, shadows, and the endless dark. "Probably just your eyes playing tricks on you," Mike muttered. Chris didn't argue. He just kept staring into the trees like something could step forward at any moment. We went to bed with all the lights on. Every creak and gust of wind felt like a warning. None of us really slept. The next morning we tried to laugh it off. A few beers, a long day by the water, and the tension started to fade. We grilled our catch, played music, tried to pretend we weren't still glancing nervously toward the woods, but that night sleep wasn't kind. Around 2 a.m. I snapped awake to a noise, metal dragging across wood, long, slow, scraping sounds that set my teeth on edge. For a second I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard it again, and again. Something was being pulled along the outside wall, getting closer to my window. I shot upright and hissed for the guys. They heard it too. Every inch of that scraping as it traveled the length of the cabin. It stopped sometimes, like whoever or whatever was making it was adjusting their grip. 5 minutes. That's how long it lasted. 5 minutes of pure, suffocating dread. When it stopped, we didn't dare move. None of us slept another second. At 3:30 a.m., the porch creaked under the weight of something heavy. Footsteps, slow, deliberate steps, moved across the boards. They paused right outside the front door. The doorknob began to turn, not rattling, not jiggling, slowly, curiously, testing. Mike was the one who finally found his voice. "We called the cops," he shouted. "They're already on their way." The twisting stopped instantly. A few seconds of absolute silence. Then, footsteps again, leaving, fading, gone. We spent the rest of the night staring at that door, waiting for the knob to twist again. By 4 a.m., we were throwing our stuff into the car without caring what we left behind. We drove until daylight broke across the sky and our hearts finally slowed to something like normal. A few days later, I tried to look up the cabin again. The listing was gone. The owner's profile had vanished. No booking history, no contact number. Like we had found a place we were never supposed to find. That's when I went deeper and hit something that made my stomach drop. A local news article, 3 years old. A missing hunter's alert. A man had rented a cabin in the wooded region north of the county for a solo trip. He never returned. His truck was later found on a remote dirt road. No body ever recovered, case still open. There was a photograph. The moment I saw it, I felt the blood drain from my face. Chris recognized him too. The man, his same jawline, same hair, stood under the headline "Missing," just as Chris had described him that first night, standing at the tree line, watching, silent, patient. Whatever was outside that cabin wasn't lost. It wasn't wandering. It knew exactly where we were and exactly how to reach us. We don't talk about that trip anymore, and we never will. Some places don't want visitors, they want replacements.